In 2015, a surprising discovery emerged within a restricted area at a major South African hospital. At that moment, the significance of this discovery remained shrouded in mystery, and over time, it ended up fading into oblivion. However, 2 years later, a strangely similar discovery was made at another prominent hospital in South Africa, also within a restricted access area. It's noteworthy how the story went unnoticed, given that both discoveries are recent and the implications of these findings are deeply intriguing. On October 4, 2017, a 61-year-old man named Tatika Katsai arrived at a hospital in Stellenbosch, one of the wealthiest cities in South Africa, with 6 tattoos. Tatika, who lived in the region with his family, had been dealing with some stomach issues in recent months and finally decided to undergo abdominal surgery in hopes of alleviating these problems. Upon arriving at the hospital, Tatika checked in and was transferred to the operating room, where surgeons began working on him. After the surgery, Tatika was taken to a recovery room. In the hospital, he was scheduled to stay for at least a few days, being cared for by doctors and nurses as he recovered, ensuring that there were no complications from the procedure. On the afternoon of October 4th, Tatika Katsai was relaxing in his recovery room. Due to the incisions on his stomach, he couldn't do much, so he lay in bed, watching TV, relaxing, and eating. At some point, some of his family members visited him in the hospital. However, what started as a routine visit turned into something unexpected when one of Tatika's relatives noticed something strange about his most recent tattoo. The tattoo, an intricate representation of a spiral snake, seemed to have changed color and was emitting a faint glow. Surprised and concerned, the relatives immediately called a nurse to check. By the end of the surgery day, Tatika was definitely feeling pain from the incisions, but overall, he was in good spirits, and the medical team considered his surgery a success. Early the next morning, around 5:15 a.m., one of the hospital's nurses went to Tatika's room to check on him. Upon entering, she found Tatika awake, alert, and seemingly normal. After a brief conversation, the nurse said she would fetch some clean sheets to make Tatika's bed. He thanked her with a nod, and the nurse left the room toward the hallway to grab the clean sheets from a cart. Upon returning to Tatika's room, she noticed he was no longer in bed. The nurse assumed Tatika had gone into the bathroom as the door was closed, so she walked over to the bed reflexively. Now TK's room was empty and the nurse had changed the bedding. After finishing, she stood staring at the bathroom door, expecting TK to come out at any moment. However, after several minutes with no response, the nurse decided to approach and knock on the bathroom door, calling out for TK. As there was no response, she eventually tried the doorknob and, realizing it was open, shouted that she was coming in. Upon opening the door, she saw that the bathroom was empty. She then looked back into the room where Tatika should have been, realizing he was nowhere to be found. She thought to herself that the only way out of the room was into the hallway, the same door she had used to enter and retrieve the bedding. If TK had dashed out through the door while she had her back turned, she surely would have heard or seen it. Furthermore, Tatika could barely stand, let alone walk or run, considering the incisions on his stomach. Totally perplexed, the nurse exited the room and informed her superiors. In 2017, when I left the military service, I practically fell apart. The military provided a lot of structure in my life, and suddenly not having it made me feel lost. I began to resent everyone around me just because they seemed happy and I didn't. I imagined that these feelings of resentment and unhappiness would simply fade away on their own, but eventually they didn't. With some encouragement from my family and friends, I sought out a therapist. Quickly, my therapist diagnosed me with depression, something I truly didn't think I had. After the shock of the diagnosis, my therapist was able to examine my life and figure out what was causing my feelings. Soon, that perspective really made me feel much better. Therapy isn't for everyone, but it's a great starting point for people who feel lost and don't know where to turn. If you identify with this hospital would immediately start looking for TK based on the facilities, but they would do so discreetly. They wouldn't reach out to TK's family to inform them they couldn't find him, nor would they call the police. Some speculated that the hospital didn't deem this an emergency and expected to quickly locate TK and that everything would be fine. Or perhaps the hospital was so embarrassed by the idea of losing a patient that they preferred to keep the matter quiet. Regardless, on the 5th, the day TK disappeared, the hospital spent the entire day quietly searching for him, but to no avail. The following day, they again dedicated the entire day to the search, once more without success. Finally, 48 hours after TK's disappearance, the hospital contacted the family to inform them of the situation. Tatika's family was shocked when the hospital informed them they hadn't heard from him in 2 days. It was a blow to them to find out the hospital hadn't yet contacted the police. So, the family decided to call the authorities and later that day, met with the police at Stellenbosch Hospital. A public search was conducted, but Tatika was not found. Authorities continued to search both the hospital and the surrounding area in the days that followed, but to no avail. The search began to dwindle and Tatika's family was devastated, not knowing what to do. On October 20th, 15 days after Tatika's disappearance, a construction team working on renovations at the hospital found his body. He was in the attic, a cramped space inaccessible to the public. It was a shocking discovery as Tatika could barely move due to the incisions on his stomach. The autopsy revealed strange results, suggesting that Tatika's death was not caused by complications from surgery, but by something unknown. The hospital hinted that his death was not natural, leaving the family perplexed. They stated that Tatika was likely dead before even reaching the attic, raising questions about how he got there and what really happened to him. This means that someone or something killed Tatika and then placed him back on the roof. The hospital's only official statement was that they cooperated with the family and really didn't know what happened to TK. Now, of course, this is a very strange story, but it gets even stranger on May 10, 2019, about a year and a half later. Tatika was found dead on the roof of Stellenbosch Hospital. Sandil Sabiya, a 53-year-old father of 4, arrived at another hospital in South Africa in the city of Durbin, considered one of the most beautiful and affluent in the region. Sandil was a builder and was working on a house when he fell and broke his leg, specifically the femur, the bone that runs from the hip to the knee. 2 days later, on May 17th, Sandil was still in the hospital recovering when his cousin came to visit him. Sandil seemed normal during the visit and mentioned to his cousin that he would be transferred to another nearby hospital for an X-ray on his leg and to speak with another orthopedic surgeon. However, when the doctors went to fetch Sandil for the transfer, he wasn't in his room. The hospital immediately contacted authorities and initiated a public search. 6 days later, on May 18th, the hospital began to detect a horrible odor coming from a wing. Workers found Sandil's decomposing body on the roof from where a black liquid was dripping. The autopsy was conducted quickly, but the results were never publicly disclosed, and Sandil's family did not comment on the results. To this day, all we know is that within a period of 2 years, 2 seemingly ordinary African men, both struggling to walk due to physical injuries, escaped unnoticed from hospital rooms and ended up dead on the roof. Some people say the men managed to escape on their own and climb to the roof, while others believe they were murdered and then placed there. There are also those who suggest that these cases are examples of spontaneous teleportation, a hypothetical phenomenon where a human being suddenly disappears and reappears in another location almost instantly. However, there is no official explanation, so all of this is just theories, and it's up to each individual to decide what to believe. If you enjoyed today's story and haven't already done so, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Turn on all notifications